It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in four basic stages.
It happens slowly, spread out across generations like a cancer, creeping, insidious, nobody noticing until it was stage 4, until it was too late. And sure, it would have been great if it ended with a bang, maybe a massive mushroom cloud over DC, a real dramatic Hollywood moment, but no, it was more like a whimper, the last few short gasps of a dying man. The sprawling urban landscapes that were home to millions soon became prime hunting grounds for the strong to prey upon the weak. Trapped and unprepared, the sheep suffered, died, and tried to survive. For those who lived on, King Death was lurking right around the corner. Urban survival is probably one of the most important skills to master for the majority of the world's population. Although it sounds cool and edgy to run into the forest and live off the land, most are probably going to hunker down versus bugging out. To be 100% clear, sheltering in place or evacuation is rather dependent on the severity of the situation. Ukraine is a great example of this and how people react to extreme SHTF. Some have stayed, some have fled, and it's interesting to note that tons of people have bugged out under absolutely terrible conditions and survived just fine. And they weren't rocking a $500 bug out bag, weapons, and tactical kit. I guess the point here is to be flexible and capable of evacuation if necessary. Just remember the PACE keyword. Ideally, one can see the disaster coming and flee in advance. Ideally, in a perfect world. But hey, we're living in 2023 and anything can happen at any time. If you don't understand how to survive in your area of operations, odds are life is going to suck pretty damn bad. And that's if you manage to stay alive. Death can come in many forms, from a sniper or starvation. Sometimes it's just a game of odds. And in the context of this video, we are discussing how to survive total and final collapse of the system as we know it. Now, if you asked me 20 years ago if the stage was set for such a major shift, I probably would have said no. But these days, based on the war in Europe, inflation, and intense competition for resources, I believe the next 10 to 15 years are going to be quite interesting. There's actually an economist from the 1930s who came up with the idea of waves that last about 50 to 60 years, and which consist of expansion, the crisis, and the contraction upon which capitalism is revived. Within these waves, there is warfare and a big reset. And yeah, by the way, he was also Russian and loved capitalism, which didn't exactly endear him to good old Stalin. If you want to know more about these waves and how this works, this video that's linked up in the pinned post and description details all of it very well and much better than I can articulate. So here's the issue. Most people are blissfully unprepared and will quickly lock on and target those with more. It's the haves versus the have-nots. This could be your neighbor or a gang of nice underprivileged youth roaming the streets in broad daylight. When crime is legalized, criminals are no longer criminals. And that's basically how it goes in states like California or countries like the UK. Check out this footage where they just walk in and just take whatever they want. Same people come back day after day, and why wouldn't they, considering the cost of food and related items? Maybe they'll start giving away gasoline as well. So the question in my mind is, how long does this last until the supply runs out and prices continue to skyrocket? And what are the losses so far in revenue for these companies? Why would they literally commit suicide? The second point here is that most people are on drugs. From antidepressants to beta blockers, what happens when the bottle is empty? Those individuals become a liability. Follow that down the rabbit hole. As people become ill, they land in the hospital. That is, of course, if those services are even still available. And if so, it's only a matter of time for emergency rooms and clinics to be overwhelmed. And if we're at this stage of collapse, you can bet that load shedding is a daily occurrence, which also impacts emergency services. Are you starting to see how everything is connected? As one link breaks, other links that are under stress start to snap as well. As emergency services collapse, the landscape will become prime hunting grounds for local gangs and cartels who are now more emboldened than ever before. We can see this right now on our border as cartels seize turf and take out rivals. Of course, we can't ignore the racial divides and random violence that comes with it. It's only a matter of time, I think, before we see full on racial war as external forces drive division and actors on both sides look to create and fortify no go zones based on race. And then what happens when the government finally collapses? Does the military just pack up their bags and go home? Probably not. You're probably going to be looking at some sort of situation where you have a lot of heavily armed units that are led by generals, or maybe just call them warlords. The way I look at it, I can either be all sad and fearful over the future, or I can prepare. So I want to share with you guys my condensed checklist of ways to survive and, yes, even thrive in a strange world. Now, it's vital to note here that if you do not do the first item on this checklist, you're not going to get anything else done. And if you do, the impact is probably going to be fairly weak. So let's go ahead and get into it. Optimize your time. Eliminate unnecessary attention to matters outside your control. Have a garden and renewable resources. And then have some skills, because resources do run out, but skills are wealth. Have friends and community that you can rely on. Be healthy, be hard to kill, and obviously do your best to avoid reliance on prescription drugs. Now, of course, I understand that is a requirement for some people, so it's important to stock up as much as possible and then also understand and investigate natural remedies as well. Now, of course, stocking up on prescription drugs used to be pretty difficult, but it's a lot easier these days when you use the Jase daily medication service, which enables you to stockpile up to 12 months of vital prescription drugs. Invest in home fortifications and practice dry fire drills both during the day and night. And obviously, don't make those fortifications too damn obvious. So go out with like small, easily explained upgrades to start with. Door armor, camouflage wireless cams, you get the idea. Stockpile the glorious holy trinity of preps: beans, bullets, and bandages. Have a fallback position and evacuation route out of town. This could range from using service roads at parallel main highways to biking on greenways. You get the idea. Consider the options and then choose the option which is least likely to be used by most people. Have at least 3 months of food on hand for each person under your watch. Have alternate power sources aside from gasoline. Solar power is an obvious one. Water, wind, etc. Know where to get resources when you run out, or simply to keep your stocks maintained. Build and bury resupply caches. And then, of course, you need to have a badass bug-out vehicle. That's obvious. And then finally, a belt-fed machine gun, because nothing says get off my lawn like... Stepping back for a moment with a high-level view, it looks like total insanity. Absolutely nothing makes sense. Why would a nation legalize crime? Why are drug addicts shitting in the streets? Why are men having babies and calling that normal? Here's my idea, which might sound a little crazy, and I guess that's normal because I am a little crazy, but what if this chaos was engineered from the top down by the system? I heard an interesting theory that they are actively promoting this for a few years before making such a harsh crackdown that they basically render everything controlled and unavailable. Prison cities, for lack of a better term. Now here's one final hard truth. It's pretty damn hard to train actual urban survival. Like, how do you simulate a collapse? In a wilderness environment, I can go out there and I can train all the survival skills I want, and the environment is perfect for that. But I have no way to simulate the collapse of the system. So the best thing I can do until everything does actually fall apart, and maybe this can apply to you as well, is simply tackle those items on the checklist. Train for survival, train to be hard to kill, be healthy, be resilient, and have a plan in place. And with that being said, we have reached the end of the video, but I just want to say real quick that I appreciate you. I appreciate the views, I appreciate the comments, I appreciate the engagement because it really does help the channel, and it really does actually restore my faith in humanity, that people are out there taking this seriously, that they're preparing and they're getting ready for the inevitable total collapse of the system. And I guess if you live in California, your property already there. So good luck with that. In the meantime, be sure to check out the Urban Survival playlist coming up and enjoy the decline.